16 hours in God. Life is a book and you hold the pen. You are the author of your story. This idea sounds simple, almost like a line from a greeting card, but if you pause and think deeply, it carries the potential to transform the way you live. Too often, we feel like helpless characters in a novel written by destiny, luck, or circumstances. When something goes wrong, we quickly blame others. Family, society, the economy, or even fate. We forget that while external factors may create situations, 16 hours in God, how we interpret them and what we do with them is completely in our hands. That is where the power of authorship lies. Think about it in every great book. The hero doesn't have a perfect life. In fact, most heroes face impossible odds, betrayals, heartbreaks, failures, and setbacks. But the story becomes powerful because the hero keeps writing onward, keeps making choices, keeps responding with courage. Imagine if every novel had a hero who never faced a problem, never failed, never struggled. How boring would that book be? In the same way, our struggles, difficulties, and challenges are not mistakes in our script. They are essential chapters that shape the depth of our story, as in God. But how we respond to them determines whether we are writing a tragedy or a triumph. God, the beauty of life, is that no matter what has been written in the past chapters, the pen is still in your hand. You can rewrite your direction anytime. A failed business doesn't mean the book is ruined. It may just be the chapter that sets you up for a greater comeback. And God, a broken relationship doesn't mean your story ends in sadness. It could be the turning point when you discover your strength, self-worth, and a love deeper than you ever imagined. Sometimes, and God, we become so obsessed with the painful chapters that we forget the story is not over. And God, one bad page doesn't define the entire book. When you recognize that you are the author, your perspective shifts. Suddenly, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, God, what am I going to write with this? That is the shift from being a victim of life to being the creator of it. And that shift changes everything. Let's take an example. Two people can go through the same setback. Say they both lose their jobs. One may write the next chapter with despair, saying, my life is finished. I have no future. The other may write with courage, saying, this is my chance to explore new opportunities. Maybe even start something of my own. The situation is the same, but the 16 hours and God, but the stories turn out completely different because the authors choose different scripts. That is the power you carry within you every single day. Even the small choices matter. When someone insults you, you can choose to write a story of bitterness and revenge, or you can choose to write one of patience and dignity. When life delays your goals, you can write a story of frustration, or you can write one of resilience. Every choice, no matter how small, is a sentence in your life's book. And with enough conscious sentences, you create paragraphs that inspire, chapters that uplift, and eventually a story that is worth reading. So, the question is not whether life is fair to you. God, the real question is, are you writing your life consciously? Or are you letting someone else hold the pen? Because as long as you are alive, the ink has not dried and the story is still unfolding. Circumstances and people may influence chapters, but they don't control the entire book. This is one of the most empowering truths about life, God. We often make the mistake of believing that our life story is entirely shaped by the people around us or the conditions we are born into. 16 hours in God, it's easy to feel powerless when your surroundings seem unfair or when others' actions affect you negatively. But while these factors may shape certain scenes or even entire chapters, they can never dictate the final story unless you let them. Think about how much time we spend blaming others. If our career doesn't grow, we may blame the boss for not recognizing us. If our relationships hurt us, God, we may blame our family or friends for misunderstanding us. If our dreams remain unfulfilled, we may blame society or circumstances for holding us back. Yes, these things do matter. We cannot deny that people and situations have an impact. But impact is not the same as control. Influence is not the same as authorship. They may be characters in your book, but you are still the one writing the narrative. And God, life is filled with people who will sometimes encourage us and sometimes discourage us. Some will walk alongside us for a while, only to leave midway. Some will cheer when we succeed, while others may secretly wish for our failure. If you base your story only on their actions, you'll never be free to write the life you truly want. Imagine a God if every author gave away their pen to the characters in the story. Would the book ever make sense? No. The characters may be important, but the author decides how the story unfolds. Similarly, in your life, people's roles may affect your experience, but ultimately you decide how you respond, how you grow, and how you move forward. Circumstances, too, are like the setting of a novel. Some people are born in wealth, others in poverty. Some start their story in comfort, others in struggle. Some face health challenges early, while others seem to sail smoothly for years. But just like the setting of a book does not define whether the story is inspiring or not, for 16 hours and God, your circumstances don't determine whether your life will be meaningful. History is filled with people who began in the darkest of places and yet wrote stories that inspired generations. What made the difference? Ours and God, their decision to not let their circumstances be the final author of their life. God's. And God, think of it like this: circumstances, and people may write the introduction of your book, but the chapters and ending are yours to create. 16 hours in God. If you allow the introduction to define the whole book, you lose the power to write beyond it. It's in God. But if you recognize that the introduction is just one part of the story, you begin to write new pages with courage and vision. For example, Hours in God. A student may grow up in a family that discourages education, saying, "Why bother?" God. Nobody in this family ever succeeded in academics. That environment may influence the beginning chapters, but the student can still decide to study hard, pursue opportunities, and break that cycle. Ours in God. Another person may face constant criticism at work, always being told they are not good enough. For 16 hours in God, that feedback can hurt, but instead of letting it define the book as a story of failure, they can use it as fuel to improve, to grow, ours God, and to prove, not to others but to themselves, that their story is greater than people's opinions. The pen is in your hand. People may tear a page, circumstances may stain a paragraph, God, but they cannot take away the right you have to write the rest of the book in the 16 hours in God. And the beauty of life is that even if the influence of others has led to painful chapters, you can still create new ones filled with strength, wisdom, and hope. Every day is a fresh blank page, giving you the chance to rewrite your direction. This is one of the most beautiful gifts life offers us, yet it's also one of the most underestimated. Too many people get stuck in the past, replaying old mistakes, reliving regrets, or carrying the heavy burden of yesterday's failures. But just as a writer begins each day with a blank sheet and God, so too are we handed a new page every morning. The question is, what are you going to write on it? Think about it when you wake up in the morning. Your past doesn't automatically dictate your present. You may have failed an exam yesterday, and God, but today you can choose to study harder. You may have argued with a loved one yesterday, but today you can choose to forgive, to listen, to reconcile. You may have wasted opportunities in the past, but today you can choose to prepare for new ones. Each day is not a continuation of failure unless you choose to write it that way. Every sunrise whispers, God, here's your chance to begin again. The problem is that we often allow yesterday's ink to spill onto today's page. See now as in God. Instead of seeing the freshness of the new page, we keep smudging it with memories of the past. Imagine an author who never moves past chapter 1 because he keeps editing it over and over again. The book would never move forward. Similarly, when we keep revisiting old hurts, old failures, and God, and old disappointments, we fail to see the beauty of what can be written today. A blank page not asks for perfection, it asks for courage. God, you don't have to write a masterpiece every single day. Some pages will be ordinary, some will be extraordinary, and some may even feel meaningless. But over time, these pages build your story. What matters is that you keep writing. Keep living consciously, 6 hours in God. Keep making choices that align with the kind of story you want to create. It's also important to remember that a blank page means freedom. Freedom from yesterday's mistakes. Freedom from the judgments of others. Freedom from your own self-doubt. 16 hours in God, just because you made a poor decision yesterday, does not mean today has to follow the same script. And God, if you wrote anger yesterday, You can write patience today. If you wrote selfishness yesterday, you can write kindness today. 16 hours in God. The beauty of the blank page is that it doesn't carry yesterday's ink unless you choose to copy it. Think of some of the most inspiring figures in history. Many of them had dark, painful, or messy pasts. But what set them apart was their ability to begin again, to write new chapters that were stronger, wiser, and more meaningful. They refused to let yesterday decide today. And in doing so, they turned their blank pages into chapters that inspired generations. Even in small ways, God, this truth applies. If yesterday you spent all your time scrolling endlessly on your phone, today, God, too can be different. If yesterday you neglected your health, today you can go for a walk. If yesterday you spoke harshly to someone, today you can apologize and heal the wound. Each day is a second chance, a reset button, a new chapter waiting to be written with intention. So, US for 16 hours and God. Don't underestimate the power of today's blank page. It is not just another day in the calendar, ours and God. It is an opportunity to reshape the direction of your story. The pen is still in your hand, the page is waiting, and the choice of what you write next belongs only to you. God. Some chapters will be painful, but they can still lead to a meaningful ending. And God, life is not a book made only of joyful moments. Every person has chapters they wish they could skip, rewrite, or erase completely. But the truth is, those painful chapters often hold the seeds of the most powerful transformations. Pain, loss, 16 hours in God. Failure and disappointment may not feel good while we're living through them and God, but they are the very experiences that shape our depth, our resilience, and our wisdom. Think of your favorite novel or movie. The story is compelling not because the hero has an easy life, and God, but because the hero goes through struggles that seem impossible to overcome. Those difficult moments make the story worth telling. In the same way, the painful chapters of our own lives add richness to the story we are writing. Without them, the book would be shallow, predictable, and uninspiring. We often make the mistake of judging the book by one chapter, Zen God. A heartbreak convinces us that our whole life will be filled with loneliness. A financial loss convinces us that success is not meant for us. A betrayal makes us believe that we can never trust again. 20 sinners in God. But what we forget is that the chapter is still ongoing and the ending has not yet been written. Pain is never the conclusion. It is only a part of the process that leads us somewhere greater. Let's consider an example. Imagine someone loses their job unexpectedly. In that moment, the chapter feels heavy, filled with fear, self-doubt, and anxiety about the future. But months later, the same person might look back and say, God, losing that job was the best thing that happened to me. It pushed me to discover new skills, to start my own venture, the US for 16 hours and God, to become stronger than I ever thought possible. What once felt like the worst chapter can later be seen as the turning point that made the whole story meaningful. Even impersonal struggles this truth shines. A failed relationship might seem like a painful stain on the pages of life, but it may prepare you to value love more deeply when it comes again. A season of loneliness may feel unbearable, and God, but it can be the time when you discover your inner strength, your passions, and your purpose. When the pain is happening, it's hard to see its purpose. But later, God, when you read back over those chapters, you realize that they were not wasted ink. They were essential lines leading to your growth. It is also in God. It's also important to understand that pain connects us with others. God, if your book were only filled with success and happiness, people might admire you, but they may not relate to you. It is in your struggles, your scars, and your vulnerable moments that others see themselves in your story. God, your painful chapters can give hope to someone who is still in theirs. By sharing how you overcame hardship, you become a light for someone lost in darkness. So, when painful chapters arrive, and they always will, do not rush to close the book. Do not declare the story ruined. Instead, remind yourself that this is just one part of the journey. The ink of pain may be heavy, but it is not permanent. The story continues, and you still hold the pen. What feels like an ending may, in fact, and God, be the beginning of a far more meaningful chapter than you ever imagined. And God, you can't control what happens, but you can always control your response. This is one of the greatest lessons life keeps teaching us again and again. Most of the frustrations we experience come from our attempts to control things that are beyond us. The weather, the economy, the attitudes of people, unexpected setbacks, or sudden losses. No matter how much we plan, life will always surprise us. Sometimes the surprises are pleasant, and sometimes they are bitter, ours and God. But the secret to living peacefully lies not in controlling every situation, but in mastering our response to them. 16 hours and imagine it's raining heavily on the day you've planned an important outdoor event. You can't stop the rain. No amount of anger or worry will change the clouds. But you can choose to adapt. You can move the event indoors. You can reschedule. Or you can even enjoy the rain with laughter and make it memorable. The same rain, the same circumstance, can either ruin your day or turn into a joyful memory, depending on your response. Think of a driver stuck in traffic. One driver keeps honking, yelling, and getting frustrated, making himself miserable. Another driver in the very same traffic turns on calming music or a podcast, takes a deep breath, and uses the time to relax or reflect. The traffic is identical, but the experience is completely different because of the response chosen. And God, that is the power you always carry within you. In life, situations are like waves in the ocean. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf them. Sometimes the waves are small and easy. Other times they are massive and frightening. But no matter how big the wave, you decide whether to panic and drown or to ride it with courage. That choice is yours alone. and God. History is filled with stories of people who faced unimaginable hardships but responded with strength. Some lost everything yet chose gratitude. Others faced betrayal yet chose forgiveness. Their external circumstances were painful, but their inner decision shaped their destiny. And when we hear their stories, we feel inspired, not because their life was easy, God, but because their responses were extraordinary. This truth also applies in everyday life. When someone insults you, you can either hold on to anger and ruin your peace, or you can let it go and rise above it. When you fail at something important, you can either sink into self-pity or decide to learn, grow, and try again. When things don't go your way, you can either cry over closed doors or look for the new doors opening around you. Each time, your response writes the next lines of your life's story. What's more, our responses have a ripple effect. When you choose patience instead of anger, you don't just calm yourself, you also create peace for others around you. When you choose kindness in the face of rudeness, you may soften someone else's heart. And God, when you respond with courage in the face of fear, you inspire others to do the same. God, your response is never just about you. It shapes the environment, the relationships, and even the opportunities around you. 16 hours in God. So while you may never have full control over the storms of life, you always have the power to decide whether you'll be broken by them or strengthened through them. That power, the power of your response, is what keeps the pen of your life firmly in your hands, no matter what chapter unfolds. Decisions made with kindness, patience, and gratitude create an inspiring story. Every choice we make is like a sentence written in our life's book, and the qualities behind those choices shape how others will read our story. You don't have to do something grand or dramatic to create an inspiring life. Often, it's the small decisions to be kind when it's easier to be harsh, to be patient when it's easier to be frustrated, and to be grateful when it's easier to complain, that truly make a difference. Kindness is one of the most powerful tools you have as an author of your story. Imagine a simple moment someone in your workplace is having a bad day and speaks rudely to you. Your instinct might be to reply with the same tone. That would be natural. But choosing kindness means you pause, you respond calmly, or perhaps you even ask if they're okay. That one decision may change not only their day, but the entire relationship. And what's more, that page of your life gets written with dignity and compassion instead of negativity. These small acts of kindness may seem insignificant, but they become some of the most memorable lines in your life's book, the ones people remember long after you are gone. Patience is another virtue that shapes the beauty of your story. Life doesn't unfold on our schedule. We often want things instantly: success, recognition, results. But reality is filled with delays, obstacles, and slow progress. In those moments, Impatience writes a story of anger, restlessness, and disappointment. Patience, however, writes a story of resilience and strength. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He doesn't dig them up every day to check if they're growing. He waits, waters, and trusts the process. Similarly, when you make decisions with patience, you give life the time to unfold its chapters properly. That patience not only protects your peace, but also makes your achievements, when they arrive, all the more meaningful. Gratitude is perhaps the ink that colors your story with brightness. Without it, even the most successful chapters can feel empty. With it, even the hardest chapters carry hope. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means recognizing blessings in spite of them. A grateful person chooses to focus on what they have rather than constantly complaining about what's missing. For example, if you lose a job, gratitude allows you to still appreciate your health, your family, or the skills you carry with you. That mindset changes the way you write the next chapter. Instead of despair, your pen writes words of possibility. When kindness, patience, and gratitude come together, your story becomes not just about personal success, but about spreading inspiration. People may forget your titles, your possessions, or even your achievements, but they will never forget how you made them feel. A person who chooses kindness leaves behind a story of love. A person who chooses patience leaves behind a story of wisdom. A person who chooses gratitude leaves us behind a story of joy. These qualities are the threads that weave together a narrative that others can read and find strength in. Life offers us countless chances every day to decide how we respond, how we act, and how we think. Each decision is like writing a single line. One line may not seem important, but over time, those lines fill pages, and those pages become chapters. When you consistently choose kindness over cruelty, patience over haste, and gratitude over complaint, your book naturally becomes a source of light, encouragement, and inspiration, not just for yourself, but for everyone who encounters your story. Characters in your life may come and go, but the plot is still in your hands. Life is filled with people, some who enter like sunshine, bringing warmth and joy, and others who enter like storms, leaving chaos and confusion. Some stay for a long time, walking beside us through many chapters, while others only appear briefly before disappearing. But no matter who comes or who leaves, your story is still yours to write. Think of your life as a stage play. Characters walk in and out, playing their roles, some as mentors, some as friends, some as challengers, and some as lessons in disguise. But none of them are the director. You are. The danger comes when we allow other characters to take over the story. A harsh comment from someone may make us feel worthless. A betrayal may convince us to close our hearts forever. A loss may make us believe that our story has no meaning anymore. But these are just moments just characters passing through. The plot remains in your hands. Sometimes we hold on to certain characters for too long, even when their chapter is clearly over. We keep reading those pages, wishing they had turned out differently, or imagining what might have been if they had stayed. But every story needs characters to exit so that new ones can enter. If one friend leaves, another may come who adds even more depth to your life. If one relationship ends, it may clear the way for a healthier, more meaningful connection. If one mentor steps away, it may push you to grow in ways you never thought possible. The plot always continues, even if certain characters don't. On the other hand, there will also be people who stay through multiple chapters, shaping you with their love, support, or wisdom. Treasure them, appreciate them, but remember, even they cannot write your story for you. They can walk with you, guide you, inspire you, but the pen remains in your hand. You decide whether to let their presence bring out your best qualities or whether you take them for granted. And yes, there will also be negative characters, those who hurt you, criticize you, or try to pull you down, but even they serve a purpose. In novels, villains often make the hero stronger. Similarly, the people who challenge you often bring out your resilience, courage, and clarity. Instead of seeing them as the ones who ruined your chapter, you can see them as the ones who forced you to sharpen your pen and write more powerfully. It's also worth remembering that you too are a character in other people's stories. For some, you may be the source of comfort. For others, the teacher. For some, perhaps even the storm. The awareness that we play roles in others' lives can help us choose more consciously how we want to be remembered in their stories. Do we want to be the character who brought light, or the one who left behind scars? Life is constantly shifting, and with it, the cast of characters changes. Some exits will hurt. Some entrances will surprise, and some returns will delight you. But the essence of your journey is not determined by them. The story is always written by your hand, your choices, your resilience. The people around you add color and texture, but the plot, the direction and meaning of your life is yours to decide. Challenges are not interruptions. They are part of the storyline that makes you stronger. Many of us look at difficulties as unwanted guests in our lives, problems we didn't invite and can't wait to get rid of. We often think, if only I didn't have this struggle, my life would be perfect. But in truth, life without challenges would be flat, uninteresting, and shallow. Just as a novel without conflict is dull, a life without obstacles would lack the richness that makes it worth living and worth reading. Imagine reading a story where the hero never struggles. He wakes up every day, everything goes smoothly, everyone praises him, and he gets what he wants instantly. Would you read such a book for more than a few pages? Probably not. It's the struggles, the moments when everything seems lost, that capture our attention and make the hero's eventual victory inspiring. In the same way, your own struggles, far from being interruptions, are essential chapters that give your story depth and meaning. Challenges test us in ways nothing else can. When things are easy, we don't truly know our strength. It's only when life gets heavy that we discover what we are capable of carrying. When you face financial difficulties, you may discover creativity and resilience you didn't know you had. When you face rejection, you may find new doors that lead you to opportunities you never imagined. When you go through heartbreak, you may uncover the strength to heal, grow, and love more deeply in the future. Challenges are like fire. They can burn, yes, but they can also refine and strengthen you like gold. Think of an athlete training for a big race. Without resistance, without exhaustion, without pushing past limits, the athlete never becomes strong. The very pain of the training is what prepares them for victory. Similarly, life's challenges are training sessions for the soul. They stretch us, shape us, and prepare us for chapters we cannot yet see. What feels unbearable today may be the very thing that equips you for tomorrow's triumph. It's also important to realize that challenges reveal who we truly are. Anyone can remain calm when life is smooth, but patience in the face of provocation, hope in the midst of despair, and faith in the middle of uncertainty, these qualities only emerge when life tests us. In that sense, challenges don't just shape your story, they reveal the hero within it. Of course, in the middle of a challenge, this perspective isn't always easy. When storms rage, it's natural to feel like life has been unfair. But if you look back at your past, you'll notice some of your strongest qualities were born in your hardest times. Some of your greatest wisdom came from your deepest mistakes. Some of your most precious relationships grew out of moments of vulnerability. Over and over again, life proves that challenges are not interruptions. They are stepping stones. Writing your story consciously means living with purpose and values. Too often, people drift through life as if they are passengers on a bus, going wherever circumstances take them, without asking if they're truly the destination they want. They live reactively, responding only to external pressures, expectations, and demands, rather than pausing to ask, what do I really want this story of my life to be about? But when you live with purpose, you shift from being a passive character to a conscious author. You stop waiting for life to write your story, and you start writing it intentionally. Living with purpose doesn't mean you need to know every detail of your future. It doesn't mean you have to map out every chapter before it happens. It simply means you have clarity about the themes you want your life to reflect. Do you want your story to be about kindness, resilience, service, or growth? Or will it be about fear, anger, and regrets? The answer to that question influences every line you write. Purpose acts as the compass of your story, guiding you even when the road feels uncertain. Values are like the ink you choose for your book. Without them, your story becomes messy and inconsistent. With them, your writing gains clarity and strength. For example, if honesty is one of your values, then no matter what situation you face, whether in business, relationships, or personal struggles, honesty will guide your decisions. If compassion is one of your values, you'll find yourself making choices that uplift others, even when it's inconvenient. These values become the recurring themes that run through every chapter, making your story authentic and meaningful. When you don't live with purpose and values, it's easy to get caught up in the noise of life. You start writing a story that isn't even yours, one shaped by other people's opinions, societal pressures, or fleeting trends. You may chase fame or approval, only to realize later that these things didn't bring true fulfillment. But when you live consciously, every chapter you write aligns with something deeper, something that matters beyond the surface. Think of a person who wakes up each morning and asks, how can I add value today? How can I live according to what I believe in? Such a person may face the same struggles as everyone else, but their story feels different. It carries weight, direction, and significance. Others who read their life feel inspired, not because everything went perfectly for them, but because their pages were written with intention. Even small decisions can reflect conscious living. Choosing to spend timely instead of endlessly scrolling on a phone is writing with purpose. Choosing to forgive instead of holding on to resentment is writing with values. Choosing to keep going after failure instead of giving up is writing with intention. These daily choices accumulate over time, forming a narrative that is consistent, powerful, and inspiring. And here is something beautiful. When you live consciously, your story doesn't just impact you, it influences the people around you. Your family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers who observe you. Purpose-driven living creates a ripple effect, encouraging others to pick up their pens and write with meaning too. Your story becomes not just a personal journey, but a source of guidance for others searching for direction in their own lives. So, writing your story consciously is about more than filling pages with random events. It is about ensuring that each line, each decision, and each chapter reflects who you truly are and what you stand for. That is how you transform a simple life into a story worth reading. I aim to write a story so inspiring that others find light, hope, and courage in it. The true measure of a life is not in how much you have accumulated, how many titles you hold, or how loudly people applaud you. The real measure lies in how your story touches others, how your choices struggles, and victories serve as a source of strength for those who come across your path. Every life is read like a book, whether we realize it or not. Some books are quickly forgotten after the first few pages, while others are carried in hearts for generations. The difference is not fame or fortune. It is inspiration. When you think of the people who have inspired you the most, chances are it was not because their life was flawless. Often, it is their resilience, their courage in hardship, or their humility in success that moves us. A person who rises after repeated failures writes a story that gives others permission to rise too. A person who chooses kindness when treated unfairly writes a story that reminds us compassion is possible. A person who remains grateful in the face of suffering writes a story that shines hope in the darkest of places. Inspiration is not about perfection, it is about authenticity and courage. Your story becomes inspiring when you live not just for yourself, but for others. Think of a candle. It does not lose its flame by lighting another. Instead, it multiplies the light. In the same way, when you use your life to encourage, uplift, and guide others, your story takes on a greater purpose. Even your struggles, which may feel meaningless while you're enduring them, can later become the very chapters that give someone else hope. Your scars can become another person's map to healing. But to write such a story, you must live consciously, remembering that your life is always being read. Someone is observing your patience in a difficult situation. Someone is noticing your kindness when you have nothing to gain. Someone is paying attention to how you treat others when you think no one is watching. You may not realize it, but your decisions, your words, and your attitude are constantly leaving imprints on the hearts of people around you. And this inspiration doesn't have to happen on a grand stage. It doesn't require fame, wealth, or recognition. Sometimes the most inspiring stories are written quietly. A mother who sacrifices for her children, a teacher who never gives up on a struggling student, a friend who stands by you in silence during your darkest hour. These simple but powerful acts of love and resilience write stories that stay with people forever. The beauty of writing an inspiring story is that it outlives you. Long after you are gone, the way you lived, the way you treated people, and the way you overcame challenges will remain as a guide for others. Just as we draw strength from stories of people who lived before us, future generations will draw strength from yours. The chapters you write today may become the pages someone else reads tomorrow when they need courage. So, as you hold the pen of your life, remember that is not just your book you are writing. It is also a gift you are offering to the world, a book of hope, courage, and light that others can turn to when their own pages feel too heavy to write. Aim to create a story that, when read, doesn't just describe a life lived, but inspires countless others to live fully, bravely, and beautifully.